Thank you very much. So my talk title today is Lead with Our Hearts. And so we're celebrating Mother's Day. And so I don't think there's any better example of people leading with their heart than the sacrifice that most moms make with their kids. It's interesting that many people I've talked with Mother's Day coming up, I've talked with many who have just absolutely have had amazing relationships with their moms where they get so much of strength and encouragement and inspiration, and it lasts a lifetime for them. And then there are others that that relationship requires a healing, and sometimes that healing lasts a lifetime. And for most of us, we're somewhere in between those two positions. I think it's interesting that we celebrate Mother's Day right here at springtime, when you can almost throw any seed into the soil and it's going to attempt to grow. This is when this season of the year is when life is most nurturing, and it is the earth's impulse for life, the nurturing quality for life. Later on, when we celebrate Father's Day, that's in June, and that's a different season, that's a different energy. By that time, the seed has used up all its resources contained within itself, and it's needing to pull moisture and nutrients from the soil. And so it needs to be planted in a place where it can get those vital resources. And so that's the way life works. That's the law. Now, in our teaching, Dr. Holmes, the founder of our teaching, he said that there were two impulses to life. There was love, that's the impulse, and law, that's the way life works, love and law. And to be successful, we can't ignore either one of them. We have to respect both of them, or else we get our lives out of balance and we can get into trouble. Now, the Mother's Day holiday actually was formalized in 1914, and it was sort of a radical holiday to begin with. It was pushed by the suffragettes to honor mothers. But I suspect that it's actually probably one of the oldest holidays. You go back in history and you find that there's been a day to celebrate motherhood throughout generations, throughout societies, throughout religions. And I think it's because that just as soon as we consciously were aware that of the miracle of birth, that we began to say, we need to spend some time with this. Soon after that, the guys went off and, conquered a bridge or something, and then there was another holiday for that. But originally, it was moms. Let's pay attention to moms. And, almost all species, almost any species with a brain is going to focus on the miracle of new birth. You see it in dogs and cats and anything else. There's always this miracle of birth. Because being a mom is a hard job. It's one of the hardest jobs we have to step up to. And it involves great sacrifice because you bring the soul into the earth that you so dearly love, and then you send them out into the world with their hopes and dreams, knowing what the world can do to hopes and dreams. Now, one of the best spiritual philosophers I know has a wonderful piece of advice about parenthood. The philosopher is Dave DeRidder. Y'all may know him. And he says that if people knew how difficult being a parent was, they wouldn't do it. If they knew ahead how difficult it was, they wouldn't do it. Jacqueline Onassis, she said motherhood, she said it was the one job that if you don't do right, it doesn't matter what else you've done in life. If you don't do that one job right, that's the most important thing you can do right. And of course, it amazes me how we just give babies to parents with little training and very little support. They'll almost throw a baby at you to get you out of the hospital. But when we had to get our rescue dog, they had to come and visit the house. Yeah, and made us sign a form that if we didn't tend to her correctly, they'd take her back. And the funny thing about it is some people with no preparation or no background in a loving family at all can step up to it and can create one, can rise to the occasion. Tom's aunt, who I met kind of late in her life when she was in her 80s, Carmen, She had been raised in a rather dysfunctional Italian family in New York City in the Depression. And the goal really was just survival. There wasn't a lot of love, it was just surviving. When she was in her mid-30s, she married a guy, and he plucked her from New York City and took her to Indiana. And he had not told her that he had a 13-year-old teenager that needed caring for. And so she ends up in this LaPorte, Indiana from New York City, and here's this 13-year-old little girl that she's got to raise. Now, I met them both late in life, and one of the things that struck me about them was the friendship that they had with one another. It really wasn't mother-daughter, it was a friendship. And I asked Carmen, I said, well, how did you do that? How did you know how to handle a 13-year-old stepdaughter? And she said, I just knew how I would want to be treated in that situation. And that's what I did. That's what I did. My own niece, who has a son of her own now, 5 years old, I just marvel at how she stepped up and to be a great mom. You know, I don't see how anybody could be a better mom. And I know what kind of situation she came from. I know the environment she came from. She never had an example of this. So where did that knowledge come from? And I think it has to come from grace. It has to come from Spirit, just to know how to be that loving. And it's not just a spiritual component. There's a spiritual component to it also, not just biological. My friend Bev, she adopted a little guy who's now a wonderful young man. And she says it was no adoption at all. She said, when they handed me that baby, she says, he was mine. He was mine. She said, yeah, there were some forms to fill out, but that was my baby. So, there's this wonderful impulse for love that we have going on. And of course, we're speaking about nurturing, but it goes beyond just male and female. I've heard someone say that, Spirit is both female and male, but it's more than that. It's not just female and male, it's more than that. And so are we, because there are times where we have to encompass both. There are times when we have people come into our lives and we have to give them a little sympathy and a little caring, a little, tea and let them share their emotions. And there are other times that we need to kind of shake them by the shoulders and say, get out there and rub some dirt on your hurt and get back in the game. We need both sides of that, and it's about a balance. And to do that for your child requires coming over your fears for them and instead focusing on their possibilities. And that's got to be a challenge. It's got to be a challenge. Part of the role of the parent is to encourage the child to find their talents and then to help them figure out a way to get into the world so the world can support that talent. And no matter how much we want to safeguard them, we have to let them explore the world beyond our protection. The joy of seeing their success has to be extremely gratifying, but the pain of seeing their failure has to be excruciating. But for the progress of their soul, we have to let them be on their journey. I thought back on the example of Christ with his mother. There's kind of bookend stories about his relationship with his mom. The first one that I always liked is the changing the water into the wine. And that story involves that his mom, Mary, goes to him and has to coax him to do it. He doesn't want to perform the miracle. It's his first miracle. And you almost kind of see a Jewish mom trying to get the kid to play the violin in front of the family, Yeah, you can do this. And so he does it. Now, another story that's not told very often and not used very much. There's another story where she set him on his ministry. She set him on his path. And now he's out into the world, and what's happening, he's getting large crowds to come to him, and he's getting some publicity, and he's getting known, and he's also stirring up some trouble. And his mom goes to him with his brothers, and they try to get him to come back home. And in Scripture, it's a kind of a balance. Is she worried for his safety or she's worried for his sanity? And he rebukes her. He says, no, I'm on my own journey. You go back home. And you have to kind of sense the heartbreak that she must have had, because she knew what was coming, and yet she still had to let him go on his own. There's a wonderful, I think the term is called maudlin song, kind of a sad, sappy song, that you play with black coffee and burning black candles when you want to feel sad. It's by Patti LuPone, and it will certainly get a tear out of you if you can't think of the name of it. But it starts off that she's a young little baby, and her mom's put her on this carousel. The carousel is kind of supposed to represent life, and the carousel is all fun and flashy. And as she goes whirling around, the mom calls out to her, "Hold on tight, dear." But the carousel is too much fun, and there's the brass ring to try to grab. And so she ignores her mom. And then later on, she gets a little bit more adventurous, and she thinks she knows best. She doesn't have to listen to mom at all. The song goes on, and finally now she's putting her little baby on the carousel. And what does she say to her little one as she whizzes by? "Hold on tightly." And she says, I wish my mom was here now, because I would like for her to hear me, giving the same caution, and I'd like for her to know that I now understand what she meant, and I can appreciate what she was trying to do. And that's kind of where I'm at in my life, is I can look back on both my parents and appreciate them as human beings doing the best they could with limited resources. Now, my mom was not the typical mom at all. It took me a long time to come to an ease and understanding and to appreciate what she was able to give and to show me. One of the best things that she illustrated for me in life was that you could change your life radically. You can go 360 degrees from wherever you're headed. You can go in the complete opposite, because it's exactly what she did. From the time of my birth up until my father died when I was 13 or so, she slowly morphed, and by the time of 13, she was firmly in the category of what I would call Church of God mama. She went to the Church of God. She was very severe, very tight. She wore her hair piled way up on her head. She had what was called a little wiglet. It was like a little skinned rat they would put on top of the hair to make it even go up higher. She had Marge Simpson's hairdo. It really, if you see Marge Simpson, my mom invented that in Macon, Georgia in the 70s. And she didn't look very happy. You look at pictures of her, it's like, this is a very not happy person. Now, my dad dies, and within about 18 months, she completely changed. She went from what I call Church of God mama to what I called honky tonk mama. Honky Tonk Mama found Conway Twitty with his pastel blue leisure suits and his backup singer, the Twitty Birds, Jack Daniels and Valium. And she was much the better for it. She loosened up. She became more of herself, and she started having fun. And she was a lot easier to live with. I was even willing to put up with Conway for the improvement. Yeah. Now, she was extremely intelligent. If she had been given the opportunity, she could have been a brilliant lawyer. She was totally loyal to friends, brutally honest with everyone. Brutally honest with everyone. Friends and distant family members found that kind of valuable. People that had to put up with her 24/7 found it a bit taxing. It was like blue cheese dressing. A little bit of it goes a long way. And there's a point where if you had too much, it's like, I don't want that anymore for a while. But she was an amazing person. She was bitingly funny. 99% of what she shared, or some of her stuff, I couldn't share with you. Think of, who was the guy? Richard Pryor. Think of a Southern Richard Pryor, and that's what you would have. One story I will share with you. When my dad died, we had gone from a family of 5 to about 6 months. We were down to just me and her. And we were in this big, huge, spooky house. It was one of the scariest houses you could imagine. It was built and added on during the Depression, so it just had wings that just went nowhere, and you could never be certain that you were there by yourself. I don't know what had happened there, but something bad had happened there. It just had a bad vibe. So it was just she and I in this big, huge, spooky house. And so she decided that she would check out getting an alarm system. They had just started coming out, alarm system. So she had the guy come out to give us the details on it. And he said, "Oh, Mrs. Wilcox, you don't need to worry about it. You don't need to be afraid." He says, "We've got this new alarm system, the ML320. He says, when we get this puppy installed in this house," he says, "if somebody in the middle of the night, while you're peacefully sleeping at 2:30 in the morning, if they take a brick and throw it through your bedroom window," he said, "all the lights will go on, a siren will start blasting out, and the phone will automatically call the police." She thought about it for a while, and she said, "Well, that's very good. But mister, if I'm peacefully sleeping in the middle of the night, and somebody takes a brick and busts through my bedroom window, and all the lights go on, and a siren goes off," she said, "you might as well call it Hart's Mortuary, because I'm going to be dead with a heart attack before anybody can get to me." Now, she didn't always love me in the way I needed, but she loved me in the way she could. And I think that's about all we can ask of anybody. I really do. And I think it's helpful at this stage of my life to see my parents as fellow travelers on this journey, fellow travelers. Sometimes we mystify our parents. We think of them as just gods or beyond humans. They're just humans. And they've come into this life. They get some training, never enough. They have us, and then they do the best they can. So today we're going to honor the mothers in our lives, but let's also honor this nurturing energy we have, because we all have it. And we do so by supporting the best of ourselves. That's the first thing we can do. Support the best in ourselves. And then support one another, supporting the best in one another. And so when I think back on the love Mom did give, I want to celebrate that. So if you had a very loving mom, take that love and just allow it to expand through your heart and soul, and just allow it to, that vibration, just make a tsunami of love to go out from your heart and soul to the world. I sent a greeting card out to my lovely friend Bev, and it's a little cartoon figure of a little fox, and he's blowing a tuba, and out from the tuba is coming all these hearts and flowers and roses and daffodils, every great thing. So just imagine that for yourself. If you're going and you're sensing the nurturing that you've got from your mom, or even from your dad, or from teachers or whoever, and just allow that love to expand. And go out and be as nice as you can be. The world needs nice right now. We don't, changing water into wine, that was really great. We can just use some nice right now. I've been out at the nurseries at Home Depot and Lowe's a lot this week in their gardening sections. And so for some reason, I've been seeing people trying to struggle with, loading the palm into their truck or whatever. And so I've been just offering people help. Can I help you with that? And neither time did anybody say yeah. But you know what? You could tell they were really happy that somebody was there willing to help them. And it made them feel good, and it made me feel just grand. So go out there and make your mama proud. Be the person that she knew you to be. The blessings you will give out will expand in your world, and they will empower you. And they will expand in the world from the person who originally blessed you and they will empower them if they're in the physical world or if they've moved on to the spiritual world. And for that part of what you might have needed from your mom that you didn't get, it's in scripture. It's, Elijah goes to the widow and he asks for a little meal, and she says, I've got this little bit of oil. That's all I have for me and my son. And he says, share this with me. And then the oil lasts for 7 days. So you might not have gotten as much love and as much encouragement and support you wanted from your parents. But if you can take that little bit that you got and spread it out on the face of the world, give it away. And in doing so, you will help heal the wound within yourself. You'll help heal the wound in the world. And here's the amazing thing. Here's the miraculous thing. Wherever that person is, if they're in the physical world, or if they've moved on to the spiritual world, you will help heal that place of woundedness within them so that they are able now to better give out love and to give out blessings. Miracles flowing in reverse. And in this way, we can step up to the great power of nurturing that our mothers gave us. And we can move through life saying, I am blessed and I am a blessing. I am blessed and I am a blessing. And in that place of truth, there is no power of darkness that can stand in their way. There is no lack or limitation that can hold us back. And we will lead with our hearts, and we will look out on the world with the eyes of love that our mothers first saw in us, and we will be blessed, and we will be the blessing. This is the truth in your life this morning. It's the truth in mine, and so it is. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.